welcome to the Massachusetts School of Law Educational Forum. Thank you for joining me. This program is brought to you by the Massachusetts School of Law. Today we're at the RDV Sportsplex in Orlando, Florida. The topic for today's show is the NBA. How has it changed over the years? Which era was better? And Michael Jordan, how has he impacted the game? Joining me now is one of the most influential people in NBA history, Pat Williams, the Senior Vice President of the Orlando Magic. Previously, he was the general manager of the Philadelphia 76ers, including the season that they were the NBA champs. Prior to that, he was the general manager for the Atlanta Hawks and the Chicago Bulls. Pat, how has the game of basketball changed over the course of your career?
I think just the magnitude of the game, the size of it, the scope of it. To put it into perspective, when I arrived in Philadelphia as the business manager of the 76ers in early September of 1968, there were 4 full-time employees in the league office in New York.
How many today?
They could have had a meeting in the phone booth, and today they're pushing up towards 1,000.
Oh, wow.
All around the world. They've got satellite headquarters on just about every continent in the world. It's become a huge worldwide enterprise. Just
it's big
enormous.
Business.
Big business, and getting bigger all the time. And international players, there would be an example. I mean, the thought 34 years ago of having a player from China as the first pick in the draft, or one of the high picks in the draft, South America, all across Europe, to have 10, 12, 14 foreign players drafted in the first 2 rounds, unheard of.
Yeah, we never would have thought of that.
Never. Walter Kennedy was the commissioner then, the former mayor of Stamford, Connecticut. And Walter, I think, would occasionally drop a little line, you know, that it's going to be a worldwide sport someday, but who could have envisioned that, or who would have believed that? So in many ways, Diane, it has changed. And above all, just the athleticism, the size, the enormity of these players. I mean, I look back to my early years, there's no comparison, for example, just of the strength, the agility, the quickness. It's just remarkable group of young athletes that are coming along from all over the world.
Is part of that change a result of players engaging in weight training and having nutrition specialists and all the things that once they didn't have the opportunity to do?
And teaching, instructing. Listen, I remember, Diane, when I was a freshman at Wake Forest, there was a professor there named Gene Hooks, Dr. Gene Hooks, and he had just written his doctoral dissertation on weight training in athletics. It was very controversial. This was the fall of '58. I mean, it was almost like heresy,
yeah.
What he was writing about. It ultimately became a book, and Gene Hooks was just, I mean, so far out there. You know, there was the whole theory of lifting will make you muscle-bound, and lifting this, that, and the other.
Ruin your touch and your game completely.
Don't do it.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
I mean, it literally, that was, what, 44 years ago? You don't do this. When Gene Hooks argued, yes, you do. Well, that was way long ago. But now, every team has a round-the-clock, around-the-year weight training program. Everybody has a strength and conditioning coach, an assistant strength and conditioning coach. I mean, it's staggering. Now we're building our own facilities. We used to have to go and hang out and maybe get the gym at a college, you know, to train at or to practice.
Or the local Y.
Local Y. I remember in Chicago in the early 70s when I was there, our players would go work out at the Lawson Street YMCA in downtown with a guy named Dick White who would work them out. I mean, that was it.
Yeah.
And let alone having facilities. No, I mean, so just these areas, Diane. How about airplane travel? Listen, the new players don't have any idea what travel used to be like. I mean, once a week, almost every team in the league would meet each other going through O'Hare in Chicago. You know, with those 5 o'clock wake-up calls to get a 7:30 flight, to get into the next city, change planes in Atlanta or Chicago. That's how we traveled. Not today.
No.
So it's staggering for me.
As a spectator, it seems to me that the game in the past 20 years has really changed from a team-oriented game to almost an individual accomplishment game. Am I wrong about that?
Well, there's a lot of that, Diane. I think one of the reasons for that is just the media attention you know, in my early years, this was kind of a cult sport. You know, the NBA had kind of a limited following who were into it. It was like a, you know, wrestling fans. You were basketball fans, but it was a very small cult-like gathering. But no longer. We're all over the place. And I think the players, the young players, see all this. They see the glamour. They see the glitz that goes with it. You know, they see this from the time they're small kids. And there's a tendency to, and basketball lends itself, you know, to individual skills, putting on a show. That is the challenge, therefore, Diane, of every coach, to convince these young guys that this is the team game, the ultimate team game, and that you've got to, as Bob Cousy used to say, you've got to share the sugar, you know, you've got to get everybody involved. And that's where great coaching comes in,
Sure.
to try and battle this sociological phenomenon of I'm in it for me, to get involved and make it the ultimate team game that basketball is.
Is that what Phil Jackson did with Michael Jordan? Did he somehow convince him to become more of a team player, and thus, accordingly, they won championships?
I think that was Phil's greatest strength. I recently wrote a book about Michael Jordan, Diane. I did over 1,500 interviews in researching the book, motivational book called How to Be Like Mike. One of the chapters I wrote about was this whole area of teamwork. And I think it was pretty clear in Michael's early years, and granted, he did not have much around him and had to carry the whole load. But as the Bulls got better, Pippen and Grant, they got better players. But Phil Jackson arrived in the fall of '90 as the head coach and sold Michael that he was going to have to get the other guys more involved, that he was going to have to sacrifice some of his own individual stuff to get them involved. And that was the only way they were going to win. Michael bought into that, by the way. And as I said, part of it was he had better teammates to trust. And the end result was the Bulls had that trio of wins in the early '90s, then came back with 3 more.
Is there any argument to be made that Michael bought into it because at the time he now had a tremendous amount of endorsement contracts, so there was an incentive for him to be able to pass the ball, where before he was individually accomplished and therefore getting all these endorsement contracts?
Well, keep in mind, Diane, that Michael Jordan is the most savage competitor ever to walk the face of the earth and has a maniacal need to win. Mm-hmm. So that has always been the centerpiece of his life and his career. And I don't care what it is, what activity it is. I mean, he is relentless. I mean, it's almost animal-like, this need to win. So I think that has always been the driving force in his life. The early years of his pro career were so frustrating to him, mm-hmm. So upsetting to him, that whatever it took, and give Phil Jackson credit. Phil Jackson sometimes is criticized, you know, for being a push-button coach and all this, but I'll tell you what, it's hard to coach talent. It is hard to coach talent.
Because you are the author of a book, How to Be Like Mike, let me ask you, how did Michael Jordan change overall the game of basketball, if at all?
Well, he took interest to the highest level ever, mm-hmm. you know, on every nation on earth. I don't think you could ever deny that. As I got into the research, you know what I discovered, Diane? Michael Jordan sold all of our tickets. He sold all of our jerseys and hats. He sold the TV ratings. He sold the international aspects of the game. He did all of that. I don't think we understood. Michael Jordan, as it turns out, in my opinion, was the most underrated player of all time. And you would say, underrated?
Yes, I would.
but I don't. None of us realized. I didn't. That he sold everything. I mean, he took the game, the entire sport, up on his back, and just vaulted it to the highest level imaginable. And I'm not minimizing, you know, the league office in New York and all the marketing people, but we were deluded. Michael was doing it all himself, and we just rode his coattails.
Go back with me, if you would, to my favorite era in basketball, and that was the Bird Magic matchup. Mm-hmm. At that time, the NBA was in terrible shape, as I recall. There were drug problems. You were watching games on rerun. It was principally black. That was not good for advertisers. At least they perceived that it wasn't good. Then all of a sudden, we had all this focus on Bird and Magic and their matchup. How did that change basketball? It certainly brought it back to the front pages of the newspaper.
Oh, it was perfect. You know, if you were sitting in Madison Avenue and trying to design this wonderful, wonderful scenario to change the face of a sport, I mean, you couldn't invent this, could you?
No.
I mean, here's Larry Bird from French Lick, Indiana, you know, hayseed kind of a guy, and we're going to put him in Boston, the old standby city of hoops. And here's this kid from Lansing, Michigan, radiant, smiling, ebullient, you know, and we're going to plop him down out here in the land of the stars, Hollywood, you know. So let's plan to put him here. I mean, can't you see the marketing people in New York working on this plan? and you'd be saying, this could never happen. Well, it did. And Larry Bird was New England, and Magic was Southern California,
LA,
yeah.
Yeah.
And right in the middle of this, not too long thereafter, 4 years later, 5 years later, here comes Michael Jordan. And we're going to plop him right down here in the city of the big shoulders, you know, right there. And this is where he's going to be. Oh, boy. And David Stern came along at this point and just rode that baby. Oh, I mean, he was just...
Still riding it.
Still riding it, but he was whipping that horse, you know, with this perfect setup. So, and I understand, and they both were great passers. These two guys were great passers.
They were the ultimate team players,
Sure.
Yet they were marketed as individuals. And that's what helped the NBA so much.
Oh, there was, I mean, you couldn't go back, as I said, Diane, and create that. But you know what? It happens, you know, it takes time. You know, we're still transitioning out, I think, of the Bird, Jordan, Magic era. You know, we're still trying to get over that. I mean, or in a good way. And now we're trying to create new rivalries and new stars, and you know, that's what sports is about.
Will we ever go back, though, to the great team play and the same type of basketball that we saw in the Bird Magic era?
Well, that's a good question. But don't ever minimize, Diane. I mean, they were great teams, but don't ever minimize that it came down to winning time. You know, they just took over. Okay?
Yeah, that's true.
They took over. And when it came down to making great plays to win games, get out of the way, give me the ball. So I think, you know, we learn from the past, and we enjoy memories of the past, but we can't pitch a tent in yesterday.
But I'm still trying.
I understand. I mean, you're a purist. You know, you have one, and we should have wonderful memories. But the past should be a springboard, not a hammock. And there's a tendency in sports, you know, to always kind of think back to the good old days. And I have warm, wonderful memories of my youth and going to the Palestra in Philadelphia and watching the old Philadelphia Warriors, you know, win a championship in 1956 when I was 15 years old. Good stuff. Yeah. That's what sports is anchored on.
Well, I worry that we're leaving an era of sport and we're moving to an era of entertainment. Perhaps that's why I want to do the show. When I was a younger person and I watched Larry Bird, to me, he was the person I most wanted to be like, diving in the stands after balls when they were down 20 points or up 20 points. It didn't matter, but he cared so much. And I don't see that today.
Well, Diane, I would disagree with you. You know, and to model everybody after Larry Bird is probably not fair. You know, because he was perfect, was he not? You know, he great shooter, the hardest worker ever. You know, you'd go out early to the Boston Garden and you hear the thump, thump, thump of the ball. There was Larry at 4:30, and then running the steps, you know, in the old Boston Garden. I mean, this is where Hoosiers came from.
And role models.
But trust me, Diane, look in my face. Trust me, players are still working hard. I mean, here we are in the Magic facility here in Orlando. We got a weight room over there. We're taping, you know, months before the training camp. Our guys are in there, you know, every day, lifting their weights, you know, working hard. Nobody's watching them. that we have personal trainers with them now. We have, what, 4 or 5 coaches, assistant coaches, who are out teaching and instructing. Yeah, the work ethic is there. Now the problem may be a little bit of the modern era, you know, that we're all adjusting to tattoos. We're all adjusting to body piercing.
You're adjusting. I'm never going to adjust to it, I guess.
Well, and part of it is your New England background. You're all influenced by Bob Ryan of the Boston Globe, the ultimate purist, who absolutely, well, my dear friend Bob just hates what's going on. I mean, in Bob's world, there's no music in the games. I mean, let alone dance teams and mascots and shooting T-shirts up into the stands. I mean, don't even go there with Bob.
No, the Fleet Center versus the Garden. I can't take it. I really, truly cannot take it.
That's your New England background. You know, and at this point, the Celtics do not have, as far as I know, a mascot.
No, they do not.
I mean, you would have, could you see Charlie the Celtic running around in his little costume? They haven't gone there yet. Do we have dance girls in Boston?
No.
Okay.
I'm going to burn the place down when we do, I swear.
All right. This goes back to your Calvinist background, Diane, but you're going to get over this. You're going to be okay. You know, we're not, I want to say to all of your viewers, we're not killing the sport. You know, with towels waving and balloons being waved in the background.
And lights flashing.
In the scoreboard and indoor fireworks and T-shirts being shot into the upper deck. My background goes back to Bill Veeck. Bill Veeck had a huge influence on my life. For 25 years, he was a friend and a mentor. And in my very early days in sports marketing, although it wasn't called sports marketing then, it was called promoting, Bill Veeck had one philosophy, Diane, and that was, it's fun. We're selling fun. And he preached in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, and I bought into it. Don't sell the game on the won and lost column. It is too risky. Because at the end of the year, there's only one team that wins. He said in exchange for that, and it wasn't that Bill didn't want to win.
Right.
But Bill said, every time you come to my ballpark, I guarantee you, you're going to have fun. Money back guarantee. If you don't have fun, come by the box office, we'll refund your money.
Wow. Tell me all the eras that you've been a part of. What have been your favorite teams and your favorite times? Oh,
one of my favorite teams was the team in Chicago that I helped put together with Dick Motta, 69 to 73. Oh, that was a very, very favorite team. And how could it not be? Chet Walker, Bob Love, Tom Borwinkle, the great passing center, the toughest, most hard-nosed backcourt, Jerry Sloan and Norm Van Leer. Norm Van Leer, who Bob Cousy coached for a while in Cincinnati. Oh, that was a wonderful team. And the city of Chicago really fell in love with them because they were Chicago. Black and blue. You know, you'd have loved that team, Diane. All over the floor burns, matchups with Milwaukee. You'd see Jerry Sloan toe-to-toe with Oscar Robertson in the old Chicago Stadium on a freezing cold January night. I mean, that would have warmed the cockles of your heart.
Take me back there.
And the Celtics would come in with the young Dave Cowens and good stuff. That was one of my favorite teams. And then, of course, the team that won in Philadelphia in '83.
Oh, sure.
Moses Malone and Dr. J and Andrew Toney, the Celtic Strangler, the Boston Strangler, Maurice Cheeks. Marvelous team.
Great matchups.
Oh, that was, and may we always remember Philly-Boston every spring. It was kind of a rite of spring.
Right.
They would match up. What a marvelous rivalry. As far as I'm concerned, Diane, the most intense rivalry in all of sports. You know, and I'm not minimizing the Yankees and the Red Sox. I'm not minimizing Michigan and Ohio State or Duke, Carolina. But Philly-Boston in the NBA, it heads my list.
And remember when Dr. J retired and he made his final tour through Boston? I mean, for us, it was almost as though Larry Bird were retiring.
Well, he had that Massachusetts background. You know, he was a UMass guy.
Right.
So Doc was kind of an adopted New Englander. But New England sports fans, Diane, have a great respect for the game. And they admire people and athletes of great character, great talent, great success, and they realize that Irving Bird era was indeed special. I mean, we talk about Bird magic. I mean, don't ever minimize the Irving Bird era.
Right.
Julius was a little bit older than Larry. You know, he'd been around longer. But that was a special 6-7 year period.
And in your career, you were responsible for the acquisition and the trade of Dr. J, as I recall. Is that correct?
Yeah, we were in Philadelphia, and it was 1976. The merger had just taken place of the two leagues that summer. And Julius had a problem with the owner of the Nets. They had a major disagreement over contract. And the Nets were just coming into the NBA. And Julius was not in camp. And it went on. I remember talking to the GM there, Billy Melchione, and asking him a question, would Julius ever be available? He said, nope. I said, well, if that ever changes, call me. And about 3 weeks later, he called and said, our owner needs money.
Wow.
I said, how much? He said, $3 million. I said, what's it going to take to sign him? He said, probably another 3. That's 6, Diane. Now, in 1976,
that was a ton of money.
Staggering.
Yeah.
We had a new owner, a man named F. Eugene Dixon, who had, good guy, but had no background in basketball, was, you know, brand new to him, never seen a game, really. I had to drive out to his farm on the edge of Philadelphia to tell him what was stirring. And I'll never forget Fitz, he looked at me and he said, now tell me, Pat, he said, who is this Julius Irving? I said, well, Fitz, let's call him the Babe Ruth of basketball. He said, well, how much is it going to take to get him? He said, and I said it real quick in kind of 6 minutes, you know. And he said, tell me, are you recommending this? This is my new owner.
Yeah.
And I said, yes, sir, I am. And then he said, well, let's do it.
Wow.
Like that. And that was off. We went to New York to hammer the deals out overnight, and boy, it all happened like that.
Good for you.
Oh my, what a time.
Joining me now is one of the most spectacular passers to ever play the game. This Hall of Famer was a member of 6 NBA championship teams, 1957, 1959, and 1960 through 1963. He revolutionized basketball with his razzle-dazzle ball-handling skills, and today is one of the most respected NBA analysts. Bob Cousy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Diane. I should bring you on the road with me as my PR agent.
Love to go. Bob, describe the changes in basketball, if there are any, over the course of your career, from the time you were one of the best to play the game, to the period that you were coach, and finally to being an NBA analyst.
I guess it was more simple when we played, Diane, and I think, frankly, I was going to say the coaches have complicated it. I'm not sure. That's probably an easy answer. That maybe it's a reflection of some of their insecurities, because the game has become much more structured and much more disciplined. The transitional part of the game, which I grew up with, we featured on those great Celtic teams, even in college. At every level, most of the offenses that were being played were transitional in nature. If you had to go controlled in terms of half-court sets and calling plays or systems, you did that if the fast break or the transition part of the game didn't work. Now that's completely reversed. Even on a professional level, everything is kind of by design. And in my humble judgment, the game is a game of free flow. The option to the play, for instance, works better than the play itself in basketball, whereas in football, in contrast, you know, 11 people have to be completely on the same page, have to, on each play, carry out specific assignments in order for the play to be successful. Every now and then a broken play in football will work, but generally speaking, 11 guys, as I say, have to be doing it simultaneously. In basketball, it's just the reverse. You know, it's the defense tells you, the offensive player or the point guard, what to do, what to create, what to develop, etc. So we don't see this as much anymore. There are 29 teams in the NBA. Perhaps 4 of them are focusing on some degree of the transitional game. Most of them, the coaches like to jump up and hold up fingers every time down. Well, obviously, if you have to stop and see what the coach wants you to do offensively, forget the transition game. That's right. It's not going to happen. Obviously, as an old-timer, I would make a strong argument in any forum that the transitional part of the game should be in every coach's arsenal on any level.
In every game?
Absolutely.
Do you believe, or do you agree with me, that the game has changed from a team-oriented game to more of an individual focus?
I assume you're talking about professional level. Not really. The successful teams are all team-oriented, Diane, because the game can't be played without 5 guys. Actually, it's, again, in my judgment, it's a 7 or an 8-man game. So you have to integrate 5 or 8 people together and doing it in a cohesive, unselfish manner in order to reach the top of whatever level you're at. The NBA or professional sports is also showbiz, so now that they've developed the high-profile players in basketball, especially, that are known literally all over the world, you know, obviously this is what we hear about, what the ESPNs and the, you know, the sports channels of the world feature, because they know that you, the fan, if you're going to pay $80 to see grown men play a child's game, you want to relate to, and it's easier to relate to the Larry Birds or the Michael Jordans or whoever the high-profile guy of the moment is, than it is to perhaps selling a team. But the bottom line is the teams that are successful. And also in a final analysis, I think what draws you, the fan, is the competitiveness of the 2 teams that you are going to see. Obviously, Celtics, Lakers, Celtics, Philadelphia, you know, the rivalries change, but I think you've got to sell both. You've got to sell the individuals and the team, but the game is not successful played by individuals. It's successfully executed, played by, as I say, 6 or 7 or 8 people.
Are the great matchups still there, like the Bird Magic era?
Oh, absolutely. You know, in our days, it was Russ and Wilt. I mean, you know, this is marketing. This is, you know, you said you interviewed Pat Williams. I mean, he was the originator of marketing techniques in the NBA and a lot of the other leagues in football and baseball, I think, adopted a lot of his techniques. So, as we said a moment ago, sports, professional sports is showbiz. You know, it's get the people in there. And once you get them in case the game sucks and is not a good game, you know, how do you keep them coming? So now it's a happening, it's an event. In basketball, every timeout, every halftime is chock full. I mean, you're never out of focus in terms of something going on the floor, even though the teams are sitting, you know, having their rest and their water or whatever during timeouts. You, the fan, are constantly being, quote, entertained by something that is happening. So, you know, you've got to sell your product, and you've got all these different varied ways of focusing on that.
I'm a fan, though, that really resents it. I love sport. I don't necessarily want to go to a game to be entertained. When I went to the old garden with the flags and no air conditioning, I went to see the game of basketball. Go to the Flea Center today. I can't take it.
You're a purist, Diane. You know, and a lot of people, although you're young to be usually it's the old timers that relate. You should talk to Red Auerbach, my old mentor. Arnold, to this day, as a matter of fact, I was struck by the fact the Celtics are starting to do a lot of this marketing we talked about, but at halftime in the first 4 playoff games we've gone to, they have some little kids running up and down the floor, you know, I mean, some Mickey Mouse contest that they have nothing professional they're offering the fans or anything. This is a throwback to Arnold, who used to say, hey, give them a winning product and they will come, you know, build it and the fan will come. He had no patience whatsoever for any peripheral thing. He thought this was bastardizing the product, obviously, or the wonderful game of basketball. He wouldn't stand for it. And, you know, he's 84. He still shows up occasionally, and maybe they just do it. He's been to the games that I've been to. Maybe they do it when he's there, and they go back to their showbiz format, you know, when he's not. But yeah, a lot of people feel like you do. And And in the long run, I think that's true. Whatever product you've got on the market, you know, you can fake the people out for so long with spin and hype and mirrors and smoke and all that stuff. Eventually, the product you're selling has got to be a quality product. Otherwise, obviously, they won't keep coming back. And if you've got a losing team in the NBA, you can surround it with as much hype and spin and halftime shows as you want. You know, it's going to be a tough sell the next year.
It seems, though, that players today, their focus is shoot first, get endorsement second. I don't know that they're necessarily on the floor worrying about winning the game. Am I wrong about that?
Oh, absolutely, especially when they reach that level. You wouldn't reach, you know, to begin with, and don't misunderstand me, I find a lot of things to criticize today's jock for, but that's not one of them. I think the analogy that is appropriate in that regard is that you know, today's jock will fight every bit as hard to get to the top of the hill as we did. In other words, every bit as competitive and determined. I don't think they'll fight anywhere near as hard as we did, we, the players from 30, 40 years ago, to stay on top of the hill. You know, we won those units, which I'm a today person. I'm not a yesterday person, so I don't go down in a cellar and look at the trophies and worry about what happened 30 years ago very much. But if I have a couple of beers and want to boast a little bit about the old days, I feel very proud and privileged to have been a part in what I consider the greatest team sport, professional team sport dynasty, frankly, of all time. You can talk Yankees, Montreals, Green Bays, and the other sports. No one ever dominated their sphere of expertise as completely as those select teams did from 57 to 69. There was 11 championships in 13 years. That has never been done before, and in my judgment will never be done again, given what you're referring to, all the distractions, all the money that these guys are being given today to play a child's game for 8 months, so that they're still every bit as determined, because they wouldn't be at that level, but there are so many distractions. They have financial security from the time they, you know, if they, for this lifetime, and if you believe in Shirley MacLaine, for the next 2 or whatever. So where's it's a declining motivational thing, you know. They'll say to you, hey man, we got great pride and we want to be the best we can be, as we all do. But at some point when you wake up with that hangover and you got 40 million in the bank, it's easy to roll back on a pillow and not go to work and fight your ass off, you know. So yes, that's present. It's a distraction. You can't give kids getting out of, never mind getting out of college, getting out of high school now. Some of them don't stop at college. $40 million to play a child's game and expect to get a smooth, concerned, community-oriented, you know, people person out of all of that, because none of us here, if we're given those kind of goodies so early in our life, I think, you know, it's the animal that's at fault. The system has created a Frankenstein monster in sports, and so you get a lot of examples that you, the fan, you know, for you, the fan, they're turnoffs. And you say, you know, what's with all of the demonstrations, the trash talk, the
tattoos.
Oh, absolutely, everything.
Crimes,
say that
everything,
we can't relate
right.
to, but there's a reason for that. This, again, without making excuses for the jocks, this is what the society or the sports world has created.
Describe what it was like coaching these young players.
I coached very happily for 6 years on a college level at Boston College. I'm happy to say, and to a sophisticated audience, they probably won't think this is a big deal, but every young man that I recruited in 6 years graduated from Boston College. And as I say, for the novice out there, they'd say, well, what's the big deal? Doesn't everybody graduate from school?
No.
Well, we know, I don't know that there's another coach. It was only 6 years, but I don't know that there's another coach in the country who can make that statement, all right? So we had good kids, we had successful kids, but even then, the recruiting process was becoming a quagmire. Now it's obscene, okay? Now all the nasty things that colleges do to recruit high-profile high school kids to their colleges so they can win and make a lot of money are obscene. It would make your hair curl. And it was starting to happen then, and I chose to leave at that point. And I'm not putting myself up above everyone else in regard to values or, thank God I had options to go to. And that's why I could exercise that option and say, I don't want to be part of this recruiting thing. I'm out of here. If I didn't, I'd have been doing what everyone else, unfortunately, is forced to do in this business, you know. Then I coached for 5 years, 4.5, 5 years, with the pros, with Cincinnati, that became Kansas City, that is now Sacramento. And that's when the tail was starting to wag the dog, when the coach was more of a handholder, because even then, at $300,000 a year for playing a child's game, the players were starting to get affected, okay? Now compound that, well, compounded how many times? 10 times anyway. The average salary last year in the NBA was $2.6 million, average. That's the guy not getting off the bench, okay? So if I thought they were uncontrollable 69 to 74, you can imagine. There's a way, however, and Jim O'Brien with the Celtics is one of the coaches that have found a way to bridge that gap, to maintain respect and some discipline, and also let the little boys think that they have enough freedom and are running the show. But it's, anyway, I got out of that also because I wasn't, you know, I think there's one chief and 12 Indians, and if the Indians are going to run the show, then I'm out of there again. But I had something to go to, you know. I came back here, and I called my old buddy Arnold and said, Arnold, I need a job. And he said, well, come and do the Celtics games on television. And so for the next 25 years, you know. So I was able to earn a living.
And how grateful we are for that.
Thank you, but you know, so I had options, and I think that's the criteria, frankly, in life, without philosophizing about it, that whatever it is you do, you know, you don't have to keep chasing the bouncing ball for the sake of chasing it. If you have options and you're being forced to do something that is illegal, immoral, you know, that doesn't coincide with your values, you got to stand up and say, I'm out of here, you know. And a lot of people stay, you know, as I say, for the sake of chasing the ball. And I think that's the divider that should be there in all our lives.
Right. Do the young players today understand the degree to which they're role models to young kids?
Yeah, some of them do. You know, unfortunately, it's what's the cliche, the rusty wheel that gets the attention, and that's the way in sports. I was involved 20 years ago with that Superstar show that was on ABC, you know. It was the longest running. It's still back there again. I don't know if it's still on ABC, but I saw some version of it where they had all the high-profile jocks come and do an Olympic-style format, and it ran Sunday afternoons for years and years. Dick Button, the old ice skater, originated the concept, okay? Very successful. I was with it for about 5 years as the commissioner, which meant I did nothing. I'd sit under a palm tree in his exotic places with the hat pulled down over my eyes. Every now and then someone would shake me and say, wake up, commish, make a decision. And I'd say, down or up, you know, whatever. So it was great. But it was the first time that I noticed, these were all high-profile jocks in the various sports, that I noticed that they'd do outrageous things for the camera. You know, they wouldn't drop their pants and moon the audience, but they'd do things that would get your attention. Right. And the director in the truck and the camera guys, follow that, you know. At the time, it was the mediocre high-profile guys as opposed to the big wheel jocks who wouldn't deign to do that, okay? But it happened frequently enough where I said, geez, there's a reason for this. Well, this was, again, the beginning of the agents types telling these guys, especially if they knew they couldn't sell them, their talent wouldn't sell them in other ways, say, hey, you got an opportunity here. Do something foolish or outrageous, and this is going to be shown to millions of households. It's going to make you more visible, you know, make you stand out, and you're going to get endorsements and think, you see. And now, of course, every time there's a touchdown, you know, somebody goes in the end zone and does some outrageous dance or or we got the wiggles, or all
And I
the
find that
demonstrations.
repulsive.
Yeah, well, I do too, but we're from another era. But the point is, there's a reason for it, Diane. It's not necessarily, you know, a guy's personality coming out, you know. You mentioned gold chain, all of this that draws attention. The agent has told the high school kid or the college kid as he gets into the pros, hey, your talent is very marketable and they're going to give you 20 million. But guess what? If you wear gold chains, if you make a fool out of yourself, if you trash talk, you're going to make 40 million. You're going to double that because now everybody's going to want you to endorse a product. You know, see what I mean? So there's a connection. Some of it is done spontaneously, but I think for the most part it's done by design. And yeah, it does turn people off. But by the same token, we started this question by, you know, I started the answer by saying that this is still a minority, but unfortunately they're getting overexposed. But there are still a lot of the professional jocks also doing it by design to some degree, becoming community involved, doing all of the good things that we expect from our, quote, role models to be doing. A lot of them completely sincere, a lot of them being, you know, told to do it by their agents, but that's the majority of them. But a few are acting like jackasses, and those are the ones we remember, I suppose.
Joining me now in New York City is Ira Berkow, a sports columnist for the New York Times for more than 20 years. Ira has been a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize for Distinguished Commentary, and in 2000 shared the Pulitzer Prize for National Reporting with his article on The Minority Quarterback. He is the author of a number of books, including To the Hoop, a simply terrific read. Thank you for joining me, Ira. Do you agree that the game of basketball has changed from a team-oriented game to an individually oriented game?
Not at the highest levels. The skills of some of the players are greater than they probably have ever been. Kobe Bryant physically may be the equal of Michael Jordan, but in comparable ages, for example, Kobe is probably ahead of Michael. And the aspect of team play is still essential in winning teams. Two perfect examples. Michael Jordan was in the league for 7 years, one of the maybe the greatest physical player we've ever seen. And for his first 7 years in the NBA, he did not win a championship. It was only until he began to trust the other players, and particularly getting in a big center, Bill Cartwright, did the Bulls win their first championship. They won their next three.
To what degree has Michael Jordan changed the game of basketball?
Michael Jordan has changed the game of basketball in that the wearing of sneakers are more important. You know, the kinds of sneakers you wear may be more important even than your skills. But Michael's flying through the air. Of course, he wasn't the first, but he was maybe the most famous. The first who really began flying through the air, well, going all the way back to the 40s, was someone named Jumpin' Joe Fuchs, who a lot of people don't remember. But then Elgin Baylor came along, and Elgin Baylor was famous for hanging in the air. And then, of course, Dr. J, Julius Erving, went flying through the air like a Concorde. But then Jordan took it to not only a higher level, but to a more commercial level, because Jordan was seen doing it in television commercials. So Jordan became more famous through television, probably, than Baylor, or Julius Erving ever had an opportunity to.
To what degree is Michael Jordan responsible for the notion, shoot first, get endorsements second, and worry about team play later?
Maybe get endorsements first.
And then shoot.
And then shoot. But again, you know, because of Michael's incredible skills, he became such an individual entity. And but also, he wasn't doing quite as well with commercials until his team began to win. And again, as I said, and his relying on other players like Scottie Pippen, even like later Dennis Rodman. Jordan never went to the same degree of dyeing his hair green and wearing feather boas the way Dennis Rodman did, but Jordan kept it in the team concept.
Let's go back to the late 1970s and the early 1980s, to the Bird Magic era. With the coming of Bird and Magic, did a previously lackluster NBA change its marketing strategy to focus on players and individual personalities?
Well, the league began to understand to a greater extent than it ever had that individual players had to be marketed. Now remember, before this, there were the Celtics and the 76ers playing head-to-head in playoff games almost every year. But it was even marketed then in many respects as Russell versus Chamberlain. Sure. And but we've taken this to another level, and in the beginning of the 80s, we had this phenomenon of Magic Johnson on the West Coast and Larry Bird on the East Coast, Boston versus Los Angeles, and this was a match made in heaven.
Was it their matchup? Was it that one was black, that one was white?
The attraction of black versus white absolutely did play into it, but the players were so good, and they were such team players, Magic and Bird, and they could do such extraordinary things with passing the ball that they became such great entertainment. And they both lifted the level of their teams.
So isn't it ironic that these two great team players helped breathe life into the NBA because of the focus on them individually?
Well, you need, a great movie. I mean, if you see Casablanca, and it's a great movie with a great story, but there's Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman, which enhance, the glory of the movie. And but Magic and Bird also were very good with the press, which is also very important. And they understood the needs of the press. Magic particularly, and you would go to their lockers after a game, and they would invariably give you good, insightful stuff. And then, of course, there was television, but for the print media, which I'm a part of, we love those guys.
Was it Bird and Magic that brought the NBA back to the front pages of the newspaper? Because as I recall, at the time they started to play ball, the NBA was in trouble. I mean, we had drug problems, yeah. We had reruns of the games, really a lot of problems in the industry.
Right. Well, before Bird and Magic came and really just sparked things, there was a dullness to the NBA, and the drugs and was a major part of it. You see them almost every day. Some NBA player was being busted for drugs, and it just and crowds were getting low, and there wasn't a television participation or viewership wasn't great. And these two guys really just came and revolutionized everything. This is not news, but it's remarkable still to look back and to contemplate and to see what these two guys are and the respect that they had for each other and the respect that they had for opposing teams. People don't realize that Bird was a great trash talker, but he didn't do it out in public. I mean, he would just antagonize the opponents, but in almost a graceful way, except one time he was antagonizing Julius Erving, who was at the end of his career, and Julius Erving went for Bird's throat. But beyond that, Larry did it in a quiet manner, but effective manner. He also would ride his own players. He would trash talk his own players, and to raise them to higher levels, he was always on
Danny Ainge.
Danny Ainge, and he was and McHale.
Yeah.
He was on McHale a lot.
By the mid-1980s, the All-Star Game no longer was enough. In 1984, the slam dunk contest was added, and in 1986, the three-point shooting contest was added. Why?
Well, the three-point shooting, the dunk contest, these were added in the same way by the marketers. In the same way that you go to a professional basketball game now, and the game isn't enough. Every time there's a timeout, you have some kind of goofy thing going on, games that they're doing from the marketers. Bringing some guy goes and he twists around, and then he tries to make a basket, but he's so confused that people are laughing, and it's like someone slipping on a banana peel. But these are during timeouts. They think this is attractive to the audience, that just the game of basketball isn't enough. The three-point contest. I love watching that the three-point shooters, and I love the when Larry Bird was in it. Before one contest, all the contestants were in the locker room, And he walks in, he says, so who's coming in second? You know, and I think it was that same contest in which that same three-point contest in which he needed to make one last basket to win the game, to win this contest, and he shot the ball in the air, and as he did, the ball still in the air, Larry turns around, walks away with his finger up in the air. I win. And the ball swishes right through the hoop. It was fabulous.
Jordan's entrance into the NBA coincided with the growth of cable television. Networks like ESPN and its SportsCenter put athletes on display like never before.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, instead of, if there's a fast break, instead of making just a normal layup, they'll make a 360 dunk behind their head. Well, that's 180 behind. You know, if they do it behind their head, but 360, or they'll twirl around and then they'll just do whatever they possibly can do because they're thinking, I'm going to be on SportsCenter with this one. Just a normal layup won't get you anything. You know, and so it won't get you certainly on the nightly news.
Would enforcing rules that are largely ignored today make a difference? For example, would the individual skill of Allen Iverson be diluted if he were called for palming when he does his crossover dribble?
It's an interesting question. If Allen Iverson were called for palming and his crossover move more than, well, I don't think he is called anymore. They were calling palming a handful of years ago or more, but they've stopped doing that. If some of the players were called for traveling when they take 5 and 6 steps, I remember, I mean, when Patrick Ewing was playing here, it seemed he would go from one end of the court to the other and, with the ball and never take a bounce. And you look at this, it's transformed the game in so many ways. But the reason, and I remember when I was coming up, you could take 1.5 steps for like a layup, and now you can take 2 steps. This is legal. 2 steps is legal now. And it makes a huge amount of difference, and so players can do more things if you don't have to. It's like walking and chewing gum at the same time. You know, I mean, now you don't have to. You can drive to the hoop and not have to dribble the ball. I mean, that makes a big difference in many respects. But the game, yeah, and I would like to see those things called again the way the game was when I was coming up. I just thought it was more interesting and more skillful.
That's our show on the NBA. From here at the RDV Sportsplex in Orlando, Florida, I'm Diane Sullivan. Thank you for joining me, and until next time, be well. Who was the best player of all times and the best team of all time?
Well, I would argue that our team in Philadelphia in 1983 for 1 year was among them. And that 83 club was very special, and being part of that was a big part of my life. However, having said that, how about the 70-win Bulls team? It'd be awfully hard to argue against that. These are late-night discussions that would go round and round forever. Some would argue the one great Boston club, they had many, but there was one that was just dominant, just exceptional. So this would go on, and the Knicks fans would tell you, wait a minute, it was our team. And we talked about Michael. I think if you asked me to pick one player to start a team with of all time, you'd have to pick Michael.
I think based on reading your book, that was the obvious conclusion.
Well, I got consumed with Michael, Diane, because when he left in '98, or appeared to be leaving, my thought was we had lived through a period of genius. Yes, basketball genius, but a 15-year period, the likes of which we have never seen before and may never see again. And so I was determined to dig in here and figure out what it was that set Michael apart, and more importantly, what can the rest of us learn from that and apply to our lives. And boy, I got absolutely engrossed in this project, and wrote the book, and I think we figured out a way that we all can be like Mike.
I still think Russell is, when you say best, was the most productive center that's ever played the game. Jabbar, for instance, in terms of the skills, if there was a machine that could measure skills, Jabbar did everything quite well. Didn't have Russell's animal intensity, for instance, and so he didn't quite complement those skills as well as Russell complemented his lesser skills in terms of shooting, passing, etc. But as a result, you know, he complimented the guys that he was surrounded with so well that as I say, he won 11 championships in 13 years. The best guards that I played with in those days were West and Oscar, who could obviously still be amongst the elite in the league. From the old days, Bob Pettit was the best power forward. You know, the Dr. J's, the Larry Birds, I mean, you can go on and on and on. To try to pick four, Diane, is doing a disservice to so many others, you know, because there's not a lot of difference between the really great ones.
Would you pick any of today's players? Are they as
Oh,
good as
sure.
the
Well,
players
there's
in your
Jason
day?
Kidd that's leading the Nets against the Celtics at the moment. Is, I think, the premier. You know, John Stockton has been the outstanding point guard for years and years and years, and he was the whole package. But this Jason Kidd is a little bigger, penetrates a little better. He at the moment is the best point guard in the league, and he could have played in our day or any day. So yeah, they'll you know, obviously Larry Bird, who's not that far removed, Kevin McHale, both have to be mentioned in this kind of company. I'm probably, you know, forgetting Elgin Baylor, going back to small forwards. I'm probably forgetting a lot of guys that are going to get upset with me because I haven't mentioned them. Right?
What about Michael Jordan?
Geez, that's what I mean about senior moments, you know. No, I concur along with everyone else in the basketball world. Michael is the best player to play this game since Dr. Naismith hung up the hoop. Yeah, Michael, at his position certainly, but at best, Michael is the best all-around player that has played the game. You know, 10 years from now, maybe 20, we'll be picking someone else because...
You'd have to say that that Michael Jordan was the best player of all time. But it's interesting. If I were in a schoolyard and there were 10 guys lined up, I mean, and I was going to play in the game, and they flip a coin, I have first pick, okay? That's the question. It may be a little bit different question from who's the best player of all time. The best player probably all time was Michael Jordan. But if I flip a coin, okay, I have first pick. Who do I pick in the schoolyard? I picked Bill Russell. Bill Russell was a phenomenon. In team sports, no one has even gotten close to what he did in team sports. He played in the NBA for 13 seasons. His team won the World Championship 11 of the 13 seasons. And one of those seasons, they were going into the final game of a 7-game series against St. Louis. I think he sprained his ankle and didn't play in the game, and they lost. If he had been in the game, probably would have won that. So, and then he won the NCAA championship 2 years in a row, and he got a gold medal in the Olympics. The most, maybe for the shortest period of time, the most remarkable record in far as team sports and winning is concerned is Magic Johnson. In a period of 4 years, Magic Johnson won 3 championships on 3 different levels. He was a senior in high school. They won the Michigan State High School Basketball Championship. When he went to Michigan State as a sophomore, they won the NCAA Championship. As a rookie in the NBA, the Lakers won, with him, the Lakers won the NBA Championship. 3 tremendous championships on 3 different levels in 4 years. I don't think that will ever be repeated.
How about the best team?
I would say the most entertaining team of all time, I'll start there, for me anyway, were the Celtics with Larry Bird. And as far as the best team of all time, I would have to say, again, the Celtics with Bill Russell and 7 or 8 Hall of Famers, from Sam Jones, Casey Jones, Heinsohn, Havlicek, Sharman, Cousy. They all didn't play quite at the same time, but they're all in the same era. And I don't know of any team that has so many Hall of Famers and that have just and won at so regularly. And I'd be hard pressed to get a better team than those Bill Russell teams.